let me start here and say sign into chat. All messages you need will appear publicly. Okay, let me sign in. No problem. The action can be performed inside desktop. You interact with chat. You can open this chat in a web browser. Okay, web browser, refresh chat. There are so many details I'm sorry, about the creation of or the doing of live streaming, and I don't know if there is anybody watching at this moment or not. I want to confirm that things are moving in the right direction, that the live streaming is working properly. I guess I can tell from what I see on the screen here that it's working. Eventually, that's working properly. Would anybody please write any comment to tell me that you can see and hear me well? If anybody is watching, please. If anybody is watching, kindly, let's say, kindly tell me if you're, if you can hear me and see me well or not. Nothing has come out yet. Nothing has come out, but I just have to start doing my video, and you can watch it at your leisure. It's a totally new experience to me. That's why it's taken some time to work out. But I'll begin answering your questions immediately. I had a question. Yeah. Oh, alhamdulillah. That's the first response. Thank you, Muhammad, for providing the feedback. Now I can, you can certainly type your questions, and I will start with the 3 questions that I received on my Facebook page. And before I begin, let me delay this till the end of the video. Let me have, first of all, you're watching me, Zahwa, is everything fine? Okay, you type what you want, and I'll answer the questions that I received on the page, on my Facebook page at the beginning, and then I'll take any further questions coming from you. Okay, I had a question from Amira Bhiri, who asks, can I mention sound devices you did not discuss in your analysis? You certainly can. Wait a second, Zahwa. I'll take questions that I already had on the page, and I'll take yours for sure. And the video won't be too long. Yes, Amira Bhiri, you certainly can refer or analyze or see the effect of any sound devices I did not analyze or talk about in my lectures. What's important is that you make your, let's say your observation, make sure that your observation is correct. If you're talking about alliteration, for example, or consonants or assonance, make sure that this is I should say a real example of any of these devices, and you will certainly mention a possible effect. Don't overdo things. The important thing about your analysis of sound devices is not to load meaning, to attribute meaning to a sound devices in an affected manner, in a manner that's not convincing. So you have to just test your knowledge, make sure that what you're saying makes good sense. It's not a pure guess. There is something in the poem or in the nature of the sound itself, phonetically speaking, yani, that proves your point of view, or simply makes your point of view plausible, yani reasonable. Okay, so it's not a matter of attributing any sort of meaning to any kind of device. You have to make sensible comments. You have to attribute sensible meanings to the devices without being far-fetched. Okay, that's my answer to your question. The second question, somebody asks me if I could identify 2 poems for the exam. Let me say that this is the sort of question that I don't like. I did talk about this in the videos. Nobody watches them. It's up to you to watch them or not to watch them. But I would. It is certainly, let's say what, not proper to keep asking me questions that I answered in detail. So the kind of thing that I can really tell the students that I'm giving you a yellow card for being negligent, because you haven't watched the video in which I talked very elaborately about this issue. I also talked about this in college. 4 poems is 4 poems. Not a single poem is dropped from the exam. Okay. The third and last question that I received is Minna El Badri, who is asking, my analysis focuses on figures of speech but mentions nothing about sound devices. Well, you don't have to write about anything. You choose your material. You choose what you write about. What's important is that your writing should be effective, should be convincing, should be an analysis after all. Because if you give up on one of the levels of analysis, like the sound level, for example, which is that level that deals with sound devices, if you choose to ignore this aspect of the poem, it's okay, but you have to know that there is an overall evaluation. There is a holistic evaluation of your essay, and your essay has to make good sense, has to be effective, has to be convincing. Okay, so I hope this answers your question. But if you do that, you're certainly risking, and if you risk that you're weakening your essay. You can certainly do well without the sound devices, but you are at a risk of weakening your essay by ignoring the sound devices altogether. Now to your to Zahwa's question, who's asking about the form of the exam. طيب أول سؤال, since you're writing in Arabic, about the form of the exam, and then the second question is not clear to me, it's not understandable to me. You are asking about شكل الessay. I don't understand this question. What does this mean? يعني regarding the form of the exam, you have a two-part exam. The first part is the essay question, and the second part contains MCQs. The MCQs will focus mainly on the on the criticism part, on Plato, which is the part I taught in the criticism syllabus. So the first part, to repeat that, is the essay, and the second part is the MCQ part, which focuses mainly on Plato so far. What do you mean the form of the essay? If you don't make your question clear enough, I can't answer. I say write an essay. Okay. وبعدين I don't understand your question. The form of the essay is an essay. Alright. If you want to know how to write an essay, a literary essay, go to the that part in the handout in which I explain how to write a critical essay. Go to those 2 pages at the end of the book, my book, Poetry Matters, in which I explain how to write an essay. Measure what you read against the analyses that I gave you. I gave you 3 analyses, and I have a 4th one in my pocket. I can post it at the at the page, at the Facebook group at any moment. Measure measure the plan that I gave you against the essays that I wrote, and you'll find that there is very much an agreement between what I instruct you to do and what I practice. Okay, so generally speaking, the essay is divided into two parts. The first part is a general part in which you make general statements about the content and the form. This is actually this is too general, I know. What I'm saying is too general. But it's good enough to answer your question. So the essay is divided into two parts. The first part is a general part that deals with the general matters in the poem, like the general form of the poem, like the general theme of the poem. And in the second part, you don't write part 1 and part 2. You just finish the introductory paragraphs, which are the general part. And the general part is what? The general part is the introductory paragraph. The general part is the introductory paragraph, or the introductory paragraphs. And after you finish the introductory paragraphs, you start moving to the specific part in which you show how the poet supports the theme from the, secondary ideas that you provide inside the poem, from the imagery, the figures of speech, the sound devices, the irony, if there is any irony, the use of paradox, and so on and so forth. So all the artistic, phenomena in the poem, all the devices, all aspects of the poem do what? They kind of support the main purpose of the poem. The main purpose of the poem. Purpose is a more general word than the word theme. Usually the purpose is to convey a certain theme, and you're comfortable with that because you won't be searching for a specific purpose. But a poem can have a different, a poem can be a pure story without actually intending to emphasize any kind of idea. Even if this doesn't exist under the sun, but it's possible to happen. If the poem has no theme, if the poem has no theme, it can have a purpose. I don't know what the telling of a story. In this case, you will, for example, if the poem purely tells a story and does nothing else, okay, what you do is that you talk about for example, if you're asked about the technique used in the telling of the story, just as you're asked about the technique used in the telling of a story in the short story syllabus or a novel, so you'll talk about the strategies or the techniques that the poet uses in order to tell the story. Okay? But suppose a poem has no theme but has a situation. For example, you can think of Lord Randall as a poem without a theme, because there is no statement about there is no making of any generalization of any sort. The poem from beginning to finish only tells an episode, a story. So there is really no theme in the poem, but we have a certain situation. What is the situation? The situation is that a kind of noble person, a person who belongs to the high class in society, meets someone who is supposed to be his true love in the woods. She poisons him. He returns home ill, and he is dying, and a conversation takes place between himself and his mother about the distribution of his wealth after he dies. That's what the poem is about. Now we need to know what happens in this poem, what the devices used in the making of the poem. In this case, there is no statement about the theme. In this case, we just have a ballad, and we give a general idea about what happens in the ballad. That is the basic situation, and then we proceed to give details about this situation. Why? Because there is no theme. يعني ما فيش theme بيقول, for example, either explicitly or implicitly, there are no obstacles in the face of true love, as Shakespeare says in Sonnet 116, for example. There is nothing that says, in apparently with no surprise, death, for example, is very cruel, and it takes the lives of the most beautiful and innocent creatures. Okay, or let's take the tiger. The tiger is a source of awe, and probably a source of cruelty in the world, in nature, and it is a kind of a mysterious sort of creature, and it's so powerful. And one very important aspect of the tiger is that it eats weaker and innocent looking animals like the lamb. And at the same time, there is this paradox, there is this problem of the fact that the creator who created the lamb is the creator who created the tiger, etc. So this is what the poem is about. There is a certain kind of theme in the poem in which that is actually expressed through the talk about the tiger. And then you see what Blake does with this theme, and how Blake conveys this theme to the reader in the most effective manner. Which devices he uses in the conveying of this meaning, okay, in the making the poem what it is, in the creation of the poem. After all, a poem is not only an idea. You can write about any idea in an essay. A poem is an artifact, يعني قطعة فنية. How is the poem created as an artifact? There is certainly an aspect that pertains to the idea, or if there is no idea, that is, if there is no theme, then we have a situation. Then you have what? A situation, like in Lord Randall. Okay? Whether we have a situation or we have a theme, we need to tell the reader what devices, what techniques the poet uses in order to say what? Get his work across. I say work because it's not theme, it's either theme or situation. Okay, that's what happens in your analysis. So in the first part, there is the general part about the theme or the situation. In the second part, you discuss how the poet creates his poem out of this theme or situation, or how he depicts, how he pictures this theme or situation through words. What devices he uses in order to do that. And you already, I think you know this very well. So this answers your question. So these are the only two questions that I received. If you want to ask any other questions, for example, about the essay, so if something went wrong, about the essay, about the size of the essay, about whatever, I'm ready to answer your questions. I think this is good enough. How long have we been here, guys? Because I'm still new to this medium. The video has been going on for 90 minutes now. I think this is good enough, and I can now post it or whatever, and this is good enough. If I receive any other questions, I'll be creating other videos. Thank you, Zawa. Thank you, Muhammad, for being present. Thank you, anybody else. We have 12 viewers, which is not bad to start with. Thank you all for being here, and I'm ready to take all your questions. I welcome all your questions. I'll be answering them. Okay? Thank you, and goodbye for now. One last thing I wanted to say. If you have any suggestions, if you have any questions about other subjects that you think I can help you with, like, for example, a conversation, like translation, like even Arabic, your Arabic style, okay, bring them over to my Facebook page or to the group, and I'll be making videos on these questions.